All right, I want to welcome everyone to the United We Strike Radio Marathon for July 2013. We have indeed made the transition across the big pond. Thank you, Alan, for your very smooth handoff. Looks like I now have control of the broadcast from my secret underground bunker only 12 miles south of the New World Odor. I am Gary Hendershot. I'll be taking you through the end of the broadcast tonight. My first presenters for the evening. I hope you'll all give a warm welcome to Dr. Dean Lloyd and Rosen. Going to bring them live now, and here we go.
Well, thank you, Gary, and greetings to everybody. Welcome, and it's good to connect with you. You might want to think of our segment as a futuristic offspring of United We Strike. Think of it as United We Evolve. You know, my mother used to have a great saying, she used to say when I was a boy. She used to say, "Son, I don't call a spade, I call it a fucking shovel." And on United We Strike, everybody's got their shovels out and they're digging to uncover the lies, digging for the truth. Kind of like to reflect back to and bring this in with an old Zen koan. First there is a mountain, then there is no mountain, then there is. First there's life as we're conditioned, brought up to perceive it. These are the values, these are the mindsets, this is how it works, these are the beliefs, this is what you have to work with. But somewhere along the line between people who can talk the talk but aren't really living it, you start to see hypocrisies, lies, deceits. And you go, wait a minute, this thing you told me, this mountain, there is no mountain there. It's a lie. You're putting me on. You're using it to control me, manipulate me. Well, now you have a thesis, antithesis saying. You have two theses, each one thinking they're right, clinging to each other so they can deny the other. But if you can get past that, if you can realize, you know, it's right. It's not what they told you it was. And it's also not my denial of what they told me it was. Then there's something there. What is it? What's available to me? How can I access it? How can I use it to fulfill myself so that my own life and my interactions with others and with the environment around me becomes more satisfying, more complete, more fulfilling? Well, one of the things that Dean and I do is, on one of our shows, we call it State of Mind, Quality of Life. Because it's the state of mind you're in that's going to determine the quality of your life. Of course, part of that state of mind is the first level of perception, which is through the physical senses, your metabolic processes. But what I found years ago, back in the early 80s, it finally dawned on me after a lifetime of research and exploration, that the missing link in human development was feelings. We want good things, but we don't deliver. We trash ourselves. I've said many times that before a parasite, be it a biological parasite or a social parasite, can take hold, there has to be host receptivity. And when we deny something, we're saying there's something there to be denied. It wouldn't bother you if somebody told you had a purple face with green propellers growing out of your head in all directions. You'd think they were either crazy, stoned, or kidding you. Of course, if they believe that, they're very confused. If it bothers you that they believe it, then that's bringing up something that's unresolved in you. Feelings are irrational, illogical, and unreasonable. They develop from the deep unconscious, the genetic structure, the range of motion that our bodies are capable of. They go through various levels, which are for most people not available. I know what you're saying makes sense. Man, I agree, but you know, I can't help it. This is the way I feel about things. Where does that come from? Why so often, against our reason, our desire, and our better judgment, do we trash ourselves? We find a cause to rally around, which gives us a chance to blow off steam. Now, obviously, a lot of the things that are covered on United We Strike are valuable and needful. You've got to kick up. You got to look at what's going on. But the question, it seems, really is not what just we don't want, but where are we going? What's available to us? The absence of pain is not pleasure. Of course, if you've been in pain on a consistent level, be it physical, emotional, and or mental, and you manage to get a break from it, a relief, you go, oh, thank God, man. Oh, I couldn't have taken much more. What a relief. But that's not pleasure. That's getting away from something you don't want. Again, you're bound to it. Pleasure is not getting away from something. Pleasure is moving towards a more expansive, inclusive, and integrative state of awareness. But right now we're split. If you want to come back to that thesis antithesis, think of the thesis as your mental constructs, your mind. Hey, I want to be a good person. I want to be able to relate to people. I want to live a decent life, a peaceful life. I want to have a beautiful family. I want to contribute to society. Nice. But these age-old feelings that we've never understood how to resolve, we bypass them, we relegate them, we discipline them, are still there. Feelings of fear, doubt, confusion, anxiety, guilt, and shame. You wouldn't choose those kind of responses because they're counterproductive to your body, your mind, and your ability to relate to each other. All of us. But oftentimes we have that. So the antithesis is, but this is how I feel. And these things can be manipulated. What we want to pose for you is the idea that it's time for humanity to grow out of this. And it's not a big, long, contrived thing. All change is immediate. Everything else is you just getting ready to finally allow yourself to go through the change, to get the materials, the insights, to build up the steam, convince yourself. But when you walk through, it's different. But we walk through every change, every expansion in society, still tethered to the old drag lines emotionally, the irrational, illogical, unreasonable drag lines, and we try to deal with them. This weighs us down, ruins our potential, and makes us far too susceptible to being manipulated. Okay, just some thoughts to start off the show. Dean, jump in and we'll keep it rolling for a while.
Beautiful. I've got some questions to your little introduction there, Am, but I'd also like to introduce the title of the United We Strike, and you had mentioned that we're moving into the future with United We Evolve. I'd like to also add United We Resolve. And how many of you are resolved? When Am was mentioning about the parasite, it needs a host. And are you predisposed? What is sucking you in and what is driving you down? What we're hearing is this: when we're raised with a social image, right? How we socially survive. The Caesar, what render under Caesar is Caesar's. But with that constant going in our mind that, hey, this shouldn't be this way. We shouldn't be spending money for all the enemies. What's our money going to? Is it going to making us sicker people? Is it breaking down our social structure? Is it building our infrastructure? We already know that those are not being dealt with properly. It's not appropriate the way the money is being spent. So we look at the economic drives in our lives, right? What is driving us? And Am asked the ever so important question, and that is, what do we want? What are we trying to achieve? If I give you the consideration that we're working up, we're trying to get a rise out of you, or some kind of manipulation on the fears that you have of not having enough to eat, or not having clean water, or not having a safe home, or enemies invading us, then what I'm doing is I'm getting into the mind to manipulate you, to drive you down, so I can do what all these power structures have been doing historically, to control you. These fears that you have about being independent, confident, and secure are not being presented by the people in charge, the puppet masters, if you will. So I'm thinking about how when Anne gives that kind of introduction, how many of you out there are really interested in making it clear for yourself, you don't want to get sucked in by all the drains in our environment, or the drains in our economic, dis-ease, if you will, and our political disease. It's constant. What we offer in our show is the tools to help you find where the balance point is. If you have a monster that you're dealing with in front of you in real life, you got to deal with it. But how much of that is real? How much of that is real to you? So we want you to be prepared in the best state of mind that you can enter into any situation, be that an economically troubling situation, if it's hey, I got to feed my family, I got to feed myself, or I'm sick, I need to get well. All those things are tools that we will help you not only give you the means to weed out what isn't necessary, but give you what you have to have, you need. We're at a crisis point. We're at a turning point, and we now know that how much is invested in the things that aren't needed. Let us give you the opportunity to turn that around. And Am, could you give me a little bit of insight? And this is a question that came up when you were talking about, is it harder on you if you resist this process? And
well, yes, you're bound to what you resist. The thing is, and this is very important to understand, anything that makes you, to any degree, from the slightest, mildest momentary annoyance, uncomfortable, to full-blown, I can't get out of it, and it's killing me, it's dragging me to hell, is never, never anything more than a misunderstanding within yourself of how to more appropriately, adequately, and effectively deal with whatever your consideration is. It's not wrong, it's not right, it's not good, it's not bad. What you're doing may have worked for you at one point, may have saved your life, may have advanced your cause, but it's obviously not working for you now. But that thing that bothers you is your point of liberation. It indicates a misunderstanding. You only get fear. There's two parts to fear. In a process I've developed where I help people permanently break that archetypal grip of it, just one session, but all healing is a process of becoming conscious. You have to grab hold of the circuitry instead of letting the circuitry run you. I end that, but all the other subsidiary fears that come up for us on a daily level come from two things. Whatever it is that you're considering that seems to be engaging fear. Am I good enough? Am I smart enough? Am I going to be alone? Am I going to be fed? Are they going to hurt me? Or whatever it is, big, small, personal, global, everything that is bothering you, it only creates fear, doubt, confusion, and anxiety when, one, you don't really understand it. You may have intellectual ideas about it, scientific measurements of it. You may have more facts and figures and better opinions than anybody else in the world. But you obviously don't understand it. And two, you either think by intellectual design, yeah, this is what it is and how it's supposed to work, or more insidiously, you feel irrationally that you do have an understanding. Yeah, this is how I feel. This makes me a person. It makes me a man, a woman. It makes me whatever. As soon as you defend something you don't understand, you start to coarsen. You start to toughen up. You become desensitized because you don't want to be wrong, because in the supposed wrong you feel threatened. The easiest way to get out of this trap, and it's a trap that we're in individually and collectively, is when you don't understand. That is when you're experiencing any degree, the slightest degree, of fear, doubt, confusion, or anxiety. You need to realize, at least to yourself, hey, there's something here that I obviously don't yet understand. Now, if you don't understand, then you don't understand. As I said, you may have more information, and like it or not, circumstances may require you got to go for what you know. But you will only get into this emotional difficulty while we're contemplating the collective screw-ups and the abuses, and we want to talk about that some more. You'll only get into the emotional difficulty in yourself instead of seeing it clearly when you stop seeing it as a range of motion to be explored and experimented with, and you start insisting that how I see it is right. If what I think isn't the answer yet, I may have part of it, but it's obviously not there. I don't have control. It's controlling me. What's missing? What haven't I seen yet? You get off the pedestal of self-justification. You stop being a target for your own righteousness, and you start to become open and receptive. In that space, you can look around and see what's really going on. However, whether you're trying to become more intimate with another person, a social system, or yourself, as soon as you move to a more open or clear space, the unresolved fears in you come up. Boy, we could transcend. We could be godlike. Yeah, but I scratched my finger and I'm bleeding. Ouch. Damn, I'm mortal. Hey, I could die. I could be hurt. I could be sick. I could be poisoned. I could be taken advantage of. Okay, we are mortal. But we have so much more potential than we're using because right now we're horribly inhibited.
Yes.
You know, yeah, go ahead, Dean. Please jump in.
Yeah, that inhibit. I wanted to bring something up is that we talk about this in the show. I just wanted you to speak about expedient compromises, why we give into what we know we can achieve or what we're trying to achieve. Tell me a little bit more about that piece.
Well, of course, we've been moving, I like to say, ass backwards into the future through a cesspool of expedient compromises. Think about it. If you, any one of you, suddenly had the kind of power that comes with great access, wealth, you can manipulate the social machinery, but you had to inherit the confusion, the ball of wax that's there, how would you really be different? Would you institute a regimen and say, okay, this is wrong, we're going to get rid of that? Is that what we're trying to do? We're trying to facilitate individual fulfillment, individual evolution, because it's we as individuals who contribute to society. But we do create a lot of expedient compromises. Why? Well, if we sit down and we're calm and we're relaxed, maybe pour a cup of tea and we're just chatting about things, we might get a very intelligent conversation going. But if you get too tired, too lonely, too horny, too frightened, if you get thrown off kilter where you can no longer, you can spit them out like slogans, but you can no longer maintain that mental posture of being open and reasonable and logical, where do you go? You revert back to these old emotional patterns, these Stone Age patterns. And there's fear there. The basis of that comes off of the genetic structure of the organism to survive. And for us, we talk about self-worth. What is the worth of a self? But more importantly, what is this self? It is a composite of the various levels of perception that are available to us. Our physical sensations, our feeling responses, our conceptual symbolic intellect, and beyond. All right. But most of it is tied up on the irrationality of the subconscious. The subconscious doesn't need to be subconscious, by the way. It's just your feeling response patterns. But these were locked in, inherited and passed on through society, and you received them before your intellects were in place as a screening device, before you could analyze. When you were 1 or 2, you didn't say, hey, Mom, Dad, all this stuff you're laying on me is kind of interesting, but I'm not sure I want to buy into it. Can we get some scientific proof here, some second opinions? No, you were born naked, ignorant, helpless, dependent. Everything was doing unto you. You took it in and you had no way of screening it. Later, as our intellects develop and we start to form a self-image, hey, I'm me, I'm a person, I'm this person, girl, boy, whatever, that's when the battle starts, this thesis antithesis between what you see as possible and where you feel locked into responding. Gut emotions, feelings, regardless of what we think or what we avoid thinking about, no matter what we convince ourselves, our feelings control the response of our physical organism. And our feelings are controlling the response of the body politic organism, which is affecting the planetary organism. So we have these compromises because the only thing that matters is the survival of who I think I am. And that's I think the bells are ringing somewhere.
Hello. Please state your name after the tone, and Google Voice will try to reach.
Are we still in the air, guys?
I'm sorry, Am. That was me trying to reconnect with Dean, and I figured if we were having trouble with his Skype, I'd call him on his phone. But I'm sorry. I'll slip back into the background and keep my mouth shut.
Let me know when he's back. I want him to be able to.
I'll
jump
do that.
I'm sure he's listening. But what we want to say is, while you're holding back the world with one hand, dealing with the collective screw-ups, the short-sighted expedient compromises we've accumulated in our mad dash. And don't confuse it. We wouldn't be talking this way if that mad dash hadn't produced some very innovative insights and technological advancements. But no system, technique, or methodology functions any better than the quality of the intelligence that uses it. Intelligence should not be confused with intellect. There's a lot of overeducated dummies who can tell you about everything. They're very disciplined and can respond in a particular form of as how they've been indoctrinated. But they're not psychologically integrated. Intelligence is the ability to comprehend all the variables in any given consideration and see how they relate, what their range of motion is, and what's the best way to use them to facilitate your well-being, and both individually and collectively. And right now, in our fear of not existing, of being put upon, of wanting control, we take whatever is available because most of the people running the show, they're very bright, they're cunning, they've obviously gotten into a position of power. I'd love to help them too, because I don't care who pushes the buttons as long as whoever is pushing the buttons has the organization, the integration within their own psyches, not to be short-sighted and expedient, who can have a good life and work for everybody else's benefit. Dean, you back with us?
Yeah, I am, and I may have only caught a little bit of that, but it reminded me of the question of where is the fight? And when most people are battling themselves from within, it is projected outward. It's looked at as that's the problem. It's the Muslims, it's the Chinese, it's the Republicans. I mean, and whatever it happens to be, it breaks down the internal integrity. Your integrity depends upon how you are able to balance out all of these enemies. But we want to know is, where are the friends? Where are we able to make sense to you? And if we do, then can you apply them? And we want to be challenged. That's one of the things we ask for in the show, is that we ask people to come up with their questions, and you can get a hold of us by going to our websites and getting in at our emails. You can send us questions for our future show. We're going to be doing the second part of the marijuana series. Am, do you want to talk a bit about that before we leave?
All right, Dean. Hundreds of millions of people around the world have used cannabis, and many millions are using it as a daily part of their routine. And regardless of the pro and con on legality, what is it? How does it affect you? What does it offer? Upsides, downsides. This is what we're exploring. First part of the show, it's borrowing from a Jimi Hendrix lyric, not necessarily stoned, but beautiful. First part was the high of the health. What does it offer us in terms, and how does it work on our physiology and our nervous system? What is it producing? Second part of the show, which we'll be doing the first Friday on Wolf Spirit Radio, 7 to 9 Pacific time, in August, is
PM.
PM, right, will be the recreational high of the experience. So we're going to explore consciousness a little bit. Whether you use it or not, you should understand it. And we're trying to make all of these things, whatever we discuss, it all comes back to consciousness. The more you understand it, the more access you have, the freer you are to use it, combine it, or not use it when and if you see fit.
Right, and just to lifegame.com is Am's website, and mine is Accutone.com.
I was about to remind you to get those websites out there. You know, we got to do a little bit of blatant self-promotion before we call it a quits for the evening.
Thank you, Gary.
Thank you.
Yeah, and if you go, you'll find You'll find the Geigers that I've mentioned at various times on the homepage. It's a nutshell outline, but they're psychologically impeccable. If you just apply them mechanically, there's much more to them. You also find a process I've outlined. Hope you check out some of the samples from my newest books. And I know Dean has a wealth of material on his website you'll probably want to check out too.
We got 30 seconds. One more time with those websites.
Okay, Am's is lifegame.com, mine is Accutone.com, and if you want to email any of the questions, you already know about the topic, we'll just take them on the show and we'll read them out and we'll answer them for you. We really like questions. We look forward to them, so please get involved that way if you find this to be interesting to you. Thank you.
Am Rosen and Dean Lloyd, thank you very much for your presentation. I'm going to take us out with a little tune here.